The cosmos, space, and the universe are all words for the endless collection of cosmological objects and matter, and to some, the most terrifying thing known to man. And who can blame them? Whether it's solar eclipses, mysterious cosmic entities, or photos of black holes, space has been on everyone's minds for the past few decades. Scientists have studied space for centuries, yet the cosmos still remains mysterious. How did Saturn get its rings? Is there a ninth planet? What is dark energy? Is the universe infinite? What's all out there? So many questions that haven't and may never be answered. This is part of what makes space so terrifying. We barely have a fraction of the answers of the universe, and upon finding answers, we only ask more and more questions. However, this isn't the only thing that makes the universe so scary. The sounds of hell can be heard just beyond the Kuiper Belt. What you just heard was the sounds of Saturn, or more specifically, the sound of its radio emissions. The sound was detected and captured in April 2002 by the Cassini spacecraft, using a radio and plasma wave instrument. The sounds produced by the waves are compacted and shifted downward to create what you just heard. What sounds like the scariest haunted house anyone's ever entered, is simply a planet that poses no threat to humanity. Jupiter follows this trend as well. On June 24, 2016, NASA's Juno spacecraft recording the crossing of Jupiter's bow shock. Take a listen. In 2016, the Juno spacecraft was planned to deopen and disintegrate after it completed 32 orbits of Jupiter, but was later changed to September 2025, where it will orbit the planet one last time. The noises Jupiter emitted were unsettling, but not as terrifying as the sounds of Saturn. Maybe if you left the solar system, the nightmare fear would be cranked up a little bit. These sounds were captured by Voyager 1's plasma instrument in 2012. When you compare the sound to the former sounds of Jupiter and Saturn, it sounds much more empty, almost making it eerie to listen to. The sounds aren't as terrifying as the former, but this could potentially be because of the lack of matter in interstellar space. If the grandness of the sound scares with the mass, the collision of two black holes over 20 times bigger than the sun must sound terrifying. Well, not exactly what I expected. The water drop of sound called chirps by scientists is created from the gravitational waves that colliding black holes produced. The event released an incredible amount of energy, more than all the stars in the known universe, yet it still created such a sound. Though, the sound doesn't give the collision enough credit for the absolute magnitude of it. If you are at the site of collision, however, you wouldn't hear anything. In fact, you'd likely be torn to shreds in milliseconds without hearing a thing. To clarify, there is no sound in space because of the incredibly small molecule per cubic centimeter ratio. To put it into perspective, the Earth's atmosphere contains a density of 10 to the 19th mpc, with the lowest concentration being in the vacuum created by scientists at 10 to the 10th. Once you enter interstellar space, there would only be 0.1 atoms per cubic centimeter, which is nowhere near enough to carry sound waves. Even just above Earth's atmosphere, The molecule per cubic centimeter ratio is too small to carry sound waves. So if something ever happens to you in space, no one will hear you scream. Which is something you want to do for the next entry. Everybody has had different experiences with space media, scary or intriguing. Some remember sitting on the couch watching X-Files or Star Trek. Some may remember watching Vsauce and universe size comparison videos. The content you grew up with will dramatically change your perspective on space. It can make some people admire, and others dread what's out there. Most content about space tries to inform rather than scare, but the unthinkable magnitude of it unsettles people regardless. There's a whole genre that focuses on the unthinkable and unknowable aspect that space shares, a genre people like to call cosmic horror. The key to making cosmic horror is to make a terrifying being, one that is impossible not to be scared of, and not show it. The idea of cosmic horror is to make a being that cannot be understood by the human mind, a being that can't be comprehended. Showing a physical form will make it comprehensible, unless it doesn't have one solid form.
Clear! Clear.
Cosmic horror is typically an interchangeable name for Lovecraftian horror, as H.P. Lovecraft is the first to use such a concept. The idea of Cthulhu, or any other eldritch being, is one that personifies a dangerous cosmological event, like a gamma ray burst or an incoming black hole. Both are forces you can't truly understand, but are prominent threats to mankind. Lovecraftian horror is like no other. It doesn't focus on blood, guts, jump scares, or anything like that. It robs you of information and only gives you enough information to form the most terrifying creature you can imagine in your head. It's hard to pull off, but when it is pulled off, it's the scariest genre of horror to have ever existed. After getting home from a long day of work, you put down all your stuff and fall to your bed. The next morning you wake up late to work. You hurriedly get your stuff on as you exit your door and... wait, what's the light? It's 8 AM in the morning. You check social media and hear news article on news article about the sun disappearing, so you decide to start a Twitter page.
This afternoon, panic is taking hold on the nation in response to the sudden disappearance of the sun, with violent riots taking place in just about every major city. We are receiving an influx of reports of ransacking and looting from New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas.
This page has been extensively covered by Nexpo, so go check out his video on this. The idea of the sun completely disappearing is scary, but that will never happen, right? Probably not, but there's a thing called a Boltzmann brain. To put it simply, it states things can appear and disappear out of thin air. So, there's an incredibly low chance for the sun to disappear. If the sun disappeared randomly, no one would expect it. In fact, no one would have known until 8 minutes after it disappeared due to the speed of light. Humanity as a whole would likely collapse within weeks, and life as a whole would die out within decades due to the freezing of the earth. This, thankfully, will likely never happen. From planets, to solar systems, to galaxies, to superclusters, to eventually the entire universe. Every cosmic entity is contained by another one, and that entity is contained by another, and another. The size of any object past the size of a planet is hard to imagine. I mean, the size of our galaxy is 10 to the 18th power kilometers wide. That's one of 18 zeros. You have nothing to compare it to. It's too big to be compared. A picture of the Earth by Voyager 1 just a little past Neptune makes us look so small, insignificant. Every thought, every breath, everything on that one small dot in the solar system in the Milky Way. Scale up and you get the biggest stars in the universe, BY Canis Majoris, Betelgeuse, and the biggest of them all, Stephenson 2. Scale up more and more and our solar system gets tinier and tinier until we're just a tiny dot in the universe. This is fascinating to some, and I'm referred to others to know how minuscule we are in the grand scheme of things. that everything that's ever happened in our lives happened in an unfathomably small fraction of the universe. The humbling size of the universe shows how uncontrollable some things are. Betelgeuse is one of the biggest and brightest stars in our night sky, and within the next 100,000 years it will likely go supernova. The supernova will likely not harm Earth, but if it were closer, the energy of the explosion will destroy not only mankind, but our entire solar system. Such an event cannot be controlled. The fact that we as a species are a thing is incredible in itself. The amount of things that will line up are unlikely, but they still happened. Our planet being in the Goldilocks zone. Our Earth just being the right size and temperature to contain life. Just as it appears, it can vanish. There's a black hole 1600 light years away from our solar system, and if at any moment it decided to head towards us, we would already be dead. Or if a gamma ray burst decided to hit our planet, an extinction of it will likely occur, destroying all life as we know it. The delicacy of life as we know it is scary. It makes us feel vulnerable, and it makes us paranoid. Paranoid of a death that cannot be changed, and cannot be controlled. Such an idea is absolutely terrifying, that at any moment one thing could happen and the best plan of action is to accept death. However, all of this is incredibly unlikely. The Fermi paradox is the discrepancy between the fact that there's so much potential for life throughout the universe, yet we haven't found any. This suggests the existence of a thing called the Great Filter, an idea that suggests that no intelligent life form can progress to the point of interstellar travel because of certain barriers, whether it's self-destruction or an extinction event. The question has not only intimidated scientists, but the general public as well. The brain usually makes these extinction events seem closer than they actually are, but the possibility still remains. Though, maybe the Fermi paradox isn't needed. There are potential witnesses of aliens here on Earth.
You're convinced that the aliens were trying to send you a message.
That's what this is all about.
And yet, Stan, from somebody who's listening to your story, it sounds like just that. It sounds like something you made up.
If you're a skeptic like I was, and trust me, I was in the same boat you were, it's like, oh, you guys are crazy. But every time I think that, something else happens to prove that I'm not crazy.
Is Stan crazy?
Is he crazy? I don't believe he's crazy. He's absolutely seen something. Things have actually happened to him. I know that, just from talking with him, from seeing some of the evidence.
No matter how convincing you may think some of these testimonies are, none are solid proof of aliens visiting Earth. You also have to ask, why aren't aliens interacting with Earth? Maybe they just want to check in on us. Or maybe they're waiting for the best moment to destroy the human race. Probably not, though. Throughout history, mankind tried to solve the questions of the world, and some have been successful. From the ancient Greeks, to Galileo and Isaac Newton, to Einstein and Stephen Hawking, they have all tried to solve things no one else could explain. But with everything they've accomplished, the universe still remains a mystery, which is deeply unsettling. Even the things we do know are disturbing. No other force or being matches the horror of the cosmos.